Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and today's going to be a quick video introducing you to the Just in Health eating plan. This is a plan that I've created over the years to kind of help fine-tune how to eat, what to eat, and the goals of our programming, helping to stabilize blood sugar, reduce inflammation, reduce and heal leaky gut and autoimmunity, and really to just really accelerate the patient's healing. And this is a guide that I give to all of my patients. Any patient that's listening to this video right now as a review, you can access that in the members area of the website. Anyone that's not a patient and you're interested in getting access to it, I'll have a link on screen where you can access it via email. And if you're looking to dig deeper underneath the surface of the thyroid and the gut and the adrenal and other deeper issues, feel free and reach out below. I'll have a link there to click as well. So off the bat, what makes a really good diet is an eating plan that essentially balances blood sugar, optimizes hormonal function, helps with mood, reduces toxicity, optimizes nutrient density, and reduces inflammation. And there's a couple ways in which we have to go about doing it. Even the right and healthy diet taken the wrong way, skipping meals, eating macronutrients out of balance can really disrupt things. So off the bat, how to eat, we really want to make sure we're eating every 4 to 5 hours. That's important for blood sugar stability. A lot of the patients that I see have adrenal dysfunction. Their adrenals aren't doing the best job at stabilizing their blood sugar. One of the biggest stressors on your hormonal system, your adrenals, is to stabilize blood sugar. So the more your blood sugar ebbs and flows and goes up and down like my cursor is here, on the high swing, insulin comes out, and that brings blood sugar back down. And then when blood sugar drops on the low swing, adrenaline and cortisol bring it back up. And a lot of people live in this insulin to cortisol, adrenaline, and blood sugar, and it really stresses out the pancreas, stresses out the adrenals. And the more stressed the adrenals are, especially for females, it throws your progesterone downstream to cortisol. We start to have more estrogen dominance. For men, we'll start to see lower levels of DHEA, and we'll start to see more estrogen in relationship to testosterone, which is not a good thing. So off the bat, eating real food, that's essential. Again, typically most people, even if they're doing real food, they're doing more sugary stuff, more complex carbs, or more higher sugar fruit than veggies. We want to be doing more of the non-starchy vegetables over the higher sugar fruit or even the starch. And by say more, I mean just by size. Vegetables don't have many calories in it, so you can easily not really consume any calories, but still consume a whole plate or two of veggies, and you feel full because of the fiber and the density and the nutrition, but it's not a bunch of calories. So when I say 3 times or use size references, I'm typically doing it based on size, not on calories, just for an FYI. Next, combining protein, fat, and carbs together. This is essential. This helps stabilize blood sugar. A lot of people are going and snacking on carbohydrate by themselves, and that just throws the blood sugar up, because think of your protein and your fat as like logs on the metabolic fire. Think of carbohydrate as like the kindling. The more refined the carbohydrate, that kindling goes from being twigs to paper to gasoline, right? So higher sugar fruit, more complex carbs, maybe lower sugar fruit and more complex carbs, maybe like the twigs, to higher sugar fruit may start becoming like paper, to the refined sugar and alcohol that ends up being like gasoline. And anyone knows if you just throw gasoline on a fire without kindling, the gasoline goes up and then out. But if we have the kindling there and the wood and the actual logs, it catches hold and we have a nice steady burn for about 4 to 5 hours, kind of like with our metabolism. So combining protein, fat, and carbs, 30 grams of protein in the first 30 minutes of waking is really important to initiate and to get that metabolism turned on. How much protein? Anywhere between a palm to a full fist to a full hand. That's about 3 to 8 ounces of protein. Again, it may be more if you're a bigger guy and more active. Some people that come into these programs that have really screwed up digestion, they have low enzyme or hydrochloric acid levels, they may be able to barely even handle any animal protein. And that means there's deeper issues we have to fix. These are good general trends. Carbohydrate amounts, 2 fists to 2 full hands. And I typically recommend on the bat, if we have metabolic issues, to start with more vegetables, 2 to 3 times more vegetables, 3/4 to half of your plate of vegetables, and then fine-tuning things down the road. And we'll go over that in the next section when we dial on the carbs. And we're going to have a meal matrix on our 3rd page that you can use to really fine-tune your protein, your carbs, and your fats, and even your seasonings, and really make a meal healthy and supportive and really stabilizing your appetite and your hormones. Next, you can see here is dialing in your carbohydrate. How many carbs should you do? Well, typical low carbohydrates, about 50 grams or less, is a pretty good starting place for most people that are overweight and have hormonal issues. Most people I see coming in with PCOS or insulin resistance or inflammation, they're doing too much carbohydrates in the form of grains, maybe higher sugar fruits, typically grains though, and a lot of refined sugar in various products. So that's one thing that's a big metabolic stressor is the insulin and blood sugars out of balance. So just getting the carbs below 50 and then choosing high quality fats and proteins. Getting your carbs below 50 means the majority of the carbs you're eating are going to be non-starchy vegetables. These are the veggies that your mom told you to eat growing up. And then maybe a small amount of low sugar fruit, maybe a handful of berries here or there, or a grapefruit or lemon lime kind of stuff. So 50 grams or below is a pretty good starting place. Great for insulin issues and weight loss issues and damaged metabolism. Next, carbs between 50 to 100 is a good average place. This is where I pretty much live, myself personally. If you have fatigue or weight gain with the lower carbs, or you feel a little bit drained or less energy with the lower carbs after a few weeks to a month, this may be a good place to progress to. Increasing the carbs may help. And some people do better, especially with exercise. They may do better with 100 to 150. Having some sweet potato in there, maybe some safer starches like some squash or some safe tubers, maybe a little bit of low sugar fruit or even moderate sugar fruit, depending on how much they exercise, if they're doing CrossFit, if they're under a lot of stress, if they're very active, if they're athletes, they may even need to do much more than that. But this is a pretty good starting place if you're having hormone or gut or just mood issues. Again, reducing inflammation is super important. Every bite of food we take is either promoting inflammation or healing. So the choice is yours. Everything we're recommending is to provide the building blocks for your brain, for your hormones, and for your neurotransmitters to heal. Again, stimulants in coffee can be negotiable. One cup, maybe two at the most. I'm okay with trying to do it after a meal is better. After your breakfast is better. Trying to make sure it's organic. If you can mix in some MCT oil in there, it's even better because it time releases the caffeine. If you can tolerate grass-fed butter or tolerate ghee, that may be a good option, but definitely MCT is a good one, or even just coconut oil blended in with your chai tea or even your high-quality organic coffee beans. Using sea salt. A lot of my patients, they have blood sugar issues or blood pressure issues as well. Their blood pressure is chronically low, or they get swings in their blood pressure, and they notice when they stand up fast, they may get dizzy or see stars. Or if they come up from a horizontal to a vertical position, they may feel a little dizzy. Now, getting some minerals in there helps, because when you have adrenal fatigue issues, your body's ability to hold on to minerals is less because those mineral corticoid hormones from the adrenals are lower, therefore you pee out those minerals easier. So taking the extra minerals in is very helpful. About a half a teaspoon twice a day with either the Himalayan or the Celtic or the Real Salt brands are phenomenal. I love the Real Salt myself personally, and this works great to help with blood pressure and a lot of the dizziness symptoms. Drinking plenty of water is great. Half your body weight in ounces. I'm 200 pounds, so 100 ounces would be a good starting place for me. I hydrate a lot in the morning, 2 to 3 cups. I try to avoid water 10 to 15 minutes before a meal and or 2 hours after. And again, you can be a little bit more lax if you're healthier and if your digestion's better. But as a starting point, if you're having digestive issues, we really want to maximize good water timing. And if you need a good water filter recommendation, feel free and check out my website at justinhealth.com/shop. I have a whole house water filtration system as well as a countertop reverse osmosis, and it's phenomenal because you really want to avoid all the chemicals and such that are in the conventional water. Again, what to eat. Omega-3 fatty acids, healthy saturated and monounsaturated fats, healthy carbs, healthy proteins. So your omega-3s are going to primarily be your good cold water fish. Your good saturated fats are going to be your coconut, ghee, or even grass-fed butter if you can tolerate it, maybe even some olive oil too. We really want to stay away from the refined fats like the canola and the soy. These are all genetically modified and tend to be inflammatory too. Trying to get more of your vegetables than fruits. That's a pretty good one. Fruits are important. I mean, they can be very helpful, especially if you choose lower sugar fruits. So try to do more veggies and fruits. That's a pretty good starting place. And again, if you need to save some money, frozen's better than canned. So that's a pretty good place to go, is do the frozen over the canned and try to do fresher. The fresher, the better. Your meats are going to come from fish and chicken and beef eggs, lamb, venison, pork. These are all really good sources. Some people may have some allergies like eggs, so just keep that in mind too. When starting out with my patients, I typically will let you know at our first consult, at our first new patient consult, whether you should be doing the 60-day challenge as a starting point, which is pretty much just a paleo starting point, or adding in the autoimmune diet element. So what's the difference? The 60-day challenge is really cutting out all the grains, all the legumes, all the dairy. May allow grass-fed butter in there for at least the 1 to 2 months. So we're cutting out all the grains. You can see here, all the legumes, all the dairy. So typically your diet would consist of meat, vegetables, maybe some eggs, maybe some grass-fed butter, maybe some low-sugar fruit, maybe some safe starch, a good amount of veggies, and then some healthy seasoning. So that's kind of how the 60-day challenge works. When we go up to the autoimmune, it becomes a little more strict. Here we'd cut out the eggs, the nuts, the seeds, the nightshades. The nightshades being the tomatoes, the potatoes, the eggplants, and peppers, and even potentially cutting out the FODMAPs if after the first month we don't see a reduction in bloating or gas, if that's a chief complaint. So keep that in mind there. And then number 7, avoiding the bad fats. These are all the junk food fats. Number 8, avoiding the artificial sweeteners like Splenda or sucralose. These are actually the same thing. Look at the back of the package. Aspartame, these can be neurotoxic for a lot of people. I see patients come in with these causing tingling and numbness and peripheral neuropathy and migraine. So definitely cut these out. Some healthier options may be the stevia. Just make sure it's an organic maltodextrin-free version. I like the company Sweet Leaf. A little bit of that may be acceptable. Really being diligent, being on point. Remember, you can't be a little bit pregnant here. You're either doing it or you aren't. Again, a little bit of cheating, especially early on when you're inflamed and sicker, can really set you up for not getting the full benefit. So if you fall off the wagon, you're one decision away from getting back on. Just keep that in mind. But we really want to get you to have the full benefit of that full 1 month really clean. And then no gluten-free junk food. These tend to be high in like potato starch and rice flour, or maybe other refined grains and sugars. They tend to be higher in sugar. So maybe down the road when you're healthier, that may be okay every now and then, but we don't want to go, off the rails thinking that we're doing ourselves a favor by having something that's gluten-free, but it really has a whole bunch of sugar in it and maybe cross-reactive gluten grains as well. And then using the meal matrix on page 3 that you just saw. That kind of helps create thousands of different combinations for you. So here's the meal matrix. You can see we have a column of proteins and carbs and fats and seasonings. And if you look at the bottom left, they're all keyed up so you can see what each thing is. So if you're on an autoimmune diet, you want to be cutting out the whey protein. You want to be cutting out the eggs and the nightshades, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, peppers. You want to be cutting out the nuts over here and maybe some of the peppers and the seasoning. So you really want to make sure your autoimmune diet is dialed in by avoiding those things. The underlying non-starchy, these are our low sugar vegetables, basically our low sugar carbs. So you can see these are all our veggies that our mom said to eat growing up, right? Our broccoli, our asparagus, our collard greens, our green beans. Relatively lower in sugar. You can see the starred carbohydrates here. Starred equals starchy. Starred equals starchy, so you can see that. And these are our safer starches. They aren't grain-based, but be careful because potato can break down to sugar, and some of these carbs can break down. They all break down to sugar, so if you're doing too much, that may create some blood sugar stress. So look at dialing in your blood sugar on that first page of the Just in Health eating plan. Also, the italicized fruits. These are our low sugar fruits. These are all italicized. These are the better fruits to eat. Typically 1 to 2 servings a day will be fine because they are low sugar. Make sure you do them with the protein and fat, or kind of do them after a meal, maybe as like a dessert. Have your veggies, have your meat and fats, and then maybe as like a dessert kind of option. And then your F's are the FODMAPs. FODMAPs are fermentable carbohydrates. It stands for fermentable oligodisaccharide mono and polyols. I know, a big mouthful, but they're fermentable carbohydrates, and people that have excessive gas and bloating may benefit from cutting those out. With my patients, we typically have them go on an autoimmune diet off the bat. Some will recommend to cut out the FODMAPs. Some will recommend to wait a month and see how you do and notice if certain FODMAP foods create bloating or gas. Like after you have cauliflower, how do you feel? Do you feel bloaty or gassy? Noticing that can be helpful. I also have a more in-depth list in the members area. If you're a patient, check out my Paleo Low FODMAP handout for a more in-depth list of what foods are higher, moderate, or low in FODMAPs. But off the bat here, really simple. The steps to creating a healthy meal: you're going to pick your protein, pick your carbs, pick your fats. So for me here, for breakfast, I did eggs and I cooked that in butter, and I had a little bit of sauerkraut. So sauerkraut is, let's see here. Sauerkraut is basically fermented cabbage, right? And then I had a little bit of sea salt on there. So where's my sea salt? Right here. So we did eggs, we did some sauerkraut, we did some healthy butter, and we did some sea salt on there. That's my meal. Now that may be a good paleo meal. Now what would be a good autoimmune meal? Well, for autoimmune patient, really simple. You may just do some leftover beef or chicken from the night before. You may go to Whole Foods and get some of those pre-cooked sausages, that maybe chicken or beef or turkey. And then you may have a carbohydrate, maybe like some kale that's sauteed in some coconut oil. And maybe you want to add a little bit of basil to it. Maybe you want to add a little bit of sea salt. Sea salt's a really easy one because it pretty much goes with everything. You can be more fancy if you want by adding other spices in. Those are all options. So you can see with some of these foods, you can just combine them up. And like if we're doing some meat, if that meat already has fat in it, you may not have to add a fat in this column. But let's say it's a boneless, skinless chicken breast. Well, boneless, skinless chicken breast. Let's say we do some green beans here. We put some coconut oil on it. The coconut oil may give us some extra fat. We may even want to cut up an extra avocado if we want some good fat. Maybe some curry on the chicken if we want, and or some sea salt. So you can see below here, you can use this meal matrix to really create your meals. Follow the flow. Be mindful of what foods you can or can't handle based on the key in the bottom left. Again, if you have an autoimmune diet, avoid the red foods. So you're picking your protein, your carbs, your fats. You're cooking or sauteing or grilling or baking your protein. You're steaming or sauteing your carbs. You can cook them with fat. Some people can handle them raw, maybe a spinach salad, you can handle it. Some people it'll cause bloating or gas, or they'll see undigested food particles in your stool. So be mindful of that, and if you see it in there, cut that food out and or start steaming it or sauteing it in a healthy fat. Number 3, add some herbs or seasonings to your dish. It creates some variety, creates some flavor that can mix it up and make it feel a little different. I do my chicken thighs, for instance, with the skin on, and I'll add some curry in there and some sea salt, and that can really mix things up very nicely. Combine your protein with a carbohydrate in this column. Typically a vegetable or even 2 vegetables is fine. If your protein's lean, like I already mentioned before, add some coconut oil to it. Maybe add some avocado as well. If you're not autoimmune, you could do some nuts to it. Again, serve yourself a reasonable amount of food containing protein, fat, and carbs. Again, if you're not eating enough food, you won't be able to last 4 to 5 hours. So if you're still hungry 5 to 10 minutes after that meal, continue with a second serving. The meal should keep you full for about 4 to 5 hours. If you feel hungry sooner, you got to eat more. Most of my patients that we treat and we see, they come back saying, I'm hungry. And a lot of times they're just not eating enough. They find that they're replacing a lot of the carbohydrates and a lot of the extra junk with more veggies, which are lower in calories. So they have to up the protein, they have to up the fat, and that's why make sure you feel full after the meal and make sure you can go 4 to 5 hours. If you're hungry sooner, you got to eat more, you got to add some more fat in, you got to add some more protein in. And a lot of patients, frankly, that have digestive issues, they may not be able to handle that much fat or that much protein without upping the HCl, the enzymes, the acids, and the bile salt. So you got to figure it out. If you're not able to process that amount, well, you got to come back and talk to me, and we'll be able to support your digestion and look at your gut for a gut bug or some kind of internal digestive stressor that's preventing digestion from being optimal. Also, be mindful if you're coming down from a higher sugar diet and you're getting more keto adapted, you're cutting your carbs below 100 or in the low 50s, and you're starting to burn more fat for fuel. It takes a week or 2 to switch from being a sugar burner to being a fat burner. And while you're switching from being a sugar burner to a fat burner, those sweet cravings can be prevalent, so be mindful of it. Also, if you have a lot of fungal issues or dysbiosis, some of those critters can really create sweet cravings, making you really want to crave that extra sugar. So be mindful of it. If you need a serving or 2 of lower sugar fruit, that's fine. Make sure you eat enough veggies, enough fat and protein, and do your best to overcome that, because those first week or 2 can be tough, especially with those sugar bugs really craving lots of sweets. Well, this is Dr. J here signing off. I hope this helps everyone listening. If anyone wants to get access to it and it's not a patient, click on screen. I'll have a little link for you. If you're a patient, you can obviously access it in the members area. And if you need to dig a little bit deeper into your health above and beyond just the diet and lifestyle recommendations, feel free and click on screen or reach out below. Again, this is Dr. J signing off. I hope you enjoy this handout.